Hi everyone, I'm Marie from mariemadeThat.co.uk. This is my first series of YouTube videos. Hopefully you'll like them. So we're starting with crochet for the absolute beginners, which will take you through doing chain stitch and single crochet in US terms or double crochet in English terms. Also how to hold the hook, how to hold your yarn, and hopefully get you started with some crochet. So let's go. Okay, so to start with crocheting, you're going to need a couple of bits of equipment. First of all, you're going to need a crochet hook. So they tend to come in two sorts. There's the one with the comfy grip like this, or there's the just the straight crochet hook with a little hook on the end there. I don't personally like these ones. I crocheted with them for years, but they hurt my hands, they hurt my wrist. I can't crochet for very long with them anymore. So I've switched to these comfy sort. You can buy them in individually, or you can buy them in multi-packs of various different sizes. These are by Pony, Easy Grip, Easy Crochet, and they're reasonably cheap and they are really good. So you get different sizes for different types of wool, different projects. So the standard one is this one, which is 4mm, 4mm, and that is what you use for double knitting yarn, which is your kind of standard, what you'd use for baby garments or jumpers, cardigans, that kind of thing, as opposed to Aran wool, which is thicker and would use a bigger hook. So you're going to need a crochet hook. You're going to need some yarn, and you're going to need a pair of scissors, small pair of scissors. So let's start with how to hold your crochet hook, because there are a couple of different standard ways, but you'll find whichever way is comfy for you. Don't get too hung up on how I hold my hook or how other people hold their hooks in other videos you might have seen. Do what works for you. For example, both me and my brother learnt to knit when we were younger, and my brother used to knit by sticking one needle upright like that between his knees and knitting with the other one. That's what worked for him. That's fine. So there are two standard ways, but most people will do a combination of the two, or one of the other, or whatever works. So don't get too hung up on that. But I will explain them to you. So there is the knife grip, which is holding it from the top, like you would hold a knife to cut your dinner. This tends to use more wrist action to do the crocheting. And then there is the pencil grip, which is what I use. So hold it like you would hold a pencil to write with, and that is more finger work. Now I have problems with my wrists, so I tend to use the pencil grip. I find that more comfortable, but as I said, do what works for you. Don't worry too much. There's standard ways of doing it, but there is no right or wrong way to hold your crochet hook. It's do whatever works. So those two. So there are a couple of other things I need to explain about crochet. Crochet stitches come in two different versions of the terminology. There is US terms, or American terms, and there is UK terms. Now, it gets a bit confusing because they both use the same names, but they mean different types of stitches. So for example, you have a chain stitch with both types, both US and UK terms. They're both the same, but then US terms goes to a single crochet, which is the first stitch. In English terms, that is called a double crochet. There is then double crochet in American US terms is a triple crochet in English terms. So it all gets a bit confusing, but I will explain that as we go through the different stitches, which one is called which in each terminology. Some people prefer US terminology, some people prefer English terminology. Personally, I switch between the two depending on which pattern I'm using at the time. But it's important to note, if you are working from a pattern, which terminology it is using, because obviously if you are using a US pattern, a US terminology pattern, it will be referring to different stitches to an English standard pattern, and it will turn out wrong if you do the wrong type of stitch. So we'll go through that in a little while, but it's just something to note. So we're going to start with a slip stitch, which most crochet projects start with. It's a way of getting the yarn attached to your hook so you can start. But the first thing we're going to do is unspool some yarn. So I've got this messy ball here, and this is the end of it. So I'm just going to unwind some yarn from the ball, because we don't want to be constantly tugging at the yarn to be able to do our stitches. So I'm just going to unspool a bunch here, and then I'm going to put my yarn ball over here in the corner. So we've got all this, so it's all nice and unspooled, but not in a tangle. So we're going to start with our slip stitch, slip knot. So if you don't know how to do that, that's fine, we're going to go through that. So start with, you've got the end of your yarn here and the ball end of your yarn this way. So we're going to take the ball end of the yarn and we're going to loop it over the top of the end, and then we're going to pick this loop up and put it over the top of the ball end of the yarn, or the end that's attached to the ball. Okay, so we've got a loop, and then we've got this piece of yarn under here. So this piece of yarn that is going towards the ball, we're going to take our hook and we're going to go underneath it. So we're over the top of this loop, under this piece, over the top of this loop. I'm going to pick the whole thing up, grab hold of the end and the bit that's heading towards the ball, and gently pull it down. I'm going to pull it really tight, just so that it is tight enough. So hopefully you can see that okay. And then we're just going to pull both ends away from each other, and it will slide up towards the crochet hook. So now we have a slip knot on the hook. So we're going to go through that again, so it's quite fast. So I'm just going to also show you how to take it off and undo it. So just going to pull the hook out, so put that over to one side, and then we're just going to take hold of the two ends of the yarn end, ball end, and just pull them apart from each other, and the knot comes undone. That's called a slip knot, because it just slips open. So again, so we take the yarn, got the ball at the end of the yarn and the ball end of the yarn, I'll loop it over itself. So we have a loop, then we're going to pick that loop up and put it over the top of the working yarn. Take our crochet hook, go over the top of the loop, underneath the working yarn, over the top of the loop, and then lift the whole thing up and pull the two ends. You can see it creating the knot there. Pull the two ends. You don't want to pull them so tight that they're that it's difficult to move the wool, because then we're going to pull the two pieces of wool, two ends of the wool apart from each other, and tighten it up on the loop. Again, you don't want to have it too tight on, you want it to be able to move up and down the hook. So there's our slip knot. If you're comfortable with a different way of creating a slip knot, use that. It's fine. Various different ways of doing it. That's how I do it. So we are now going to create the chain stitch. So that is the basis for most crochet projects. Unlike knitting, where you cast on lots and lots of stitches, crocheting you only use one stitch at a time, and you work your way along the project that you're making one stitch at a time. So it's good in that respect, because there's only one stitch you need to worry about. So it's not like knitting, where if you drop a stitch and you don't notice and you carry on knitting, you got yourself in a problem, because you've got a hole in your work. There is just one, we work one stitch at a time. So we're going to create a chain of stitches. We're going to do 10 chains on here, just to make a little swatch so you can get the hang of it. So first thing is how to hold your yarn. We've gone through how to hold your crochet hook. There's various different ways of holding your yarn. Again, do whatever works for you. There's no right or wrong. Don't get hung up on how I do it if you can't do that, if it just doesn't feel comfortable, or you just can't figure it out, don't worry, just hold the yarn however works for you. So I am going to do this so that my working yarn is going to be coming from this side, and my tail yarn is going to be over here. So first thing I'm going to do is take my tail bit that's not attached to the ball, and I'm going to lay it over my little finger of the hand that's holding the hook and curl it around. So there we go, that's held. I'm going to slide the hook to this end. Oh, so, and then I'm going to take the yarn that leads to the ball, it's the working yarn, and hold that in my other hand. So what we're going to do, and this is very basic technique of crocheting, it's a term called yarn over. So often it's just in patterns as YO, but yarn over. So if you see that, that's what that means. And all that means is literally you are going to take your working yarn and put it over the hook. Okay, so we're going to do that again. Do that again. So we're going to take our working yarn, not the tail end that we keep holding out the way, this working yarn that's attached to the end of the ball, and we're going to go around the hook from the back and over. So we've got our slip knot here, then we've got our yarn over here, and what we're going to do is use this end of the crochet hook to pull this yarn over through this slip knot, and that is going to create our first chain. The slip knot does not count as a chain or a stitch, to be honest. So we're going to do that by, I'm going to grab hold of this tail with my hand that's holding the working yarn, and then I'm going to slide my crochet hook through the loop, and see that little hook on the end is going to grab the working yarn, and it's going to pull it through. Let's see if we can get that a bit better in focus for you. So there is our first chain, that bit there, so a little V. So we're going to do it again. So we're going to go yarn over, and then we're going to grab this tail here, just let go of it with this hand if you want, and pull your crochet hook back so it catches that yarn over, and pull it through the loop, and there we have 2 chains. Let's see if we can get that a bit closer and a bit more in focus for you. Clearly not. Right, okay, we need to work on that. It's work down here. Oh, there we go. Right, just needed something behind it. Okay, so now we have 2 chains. So we have one here and one here. Okay. So we're going to do another one, which will be 3. So we'll take hold of this tail again, yarn over, pull it back slowly and through that. Now when you're doing these, you don't want the chain to be too loose and you don't want it to be too tight, because if it's too loose then you're going to have a really wobbly chain, and that's never going to tighten up, and it's going to have really wobbly bit on your pattern. And if you have it too tight, you're going to struggle to get your stitches into the hook. So you want it a little bit, you want your loops to be a little bit thicker than, a little bit bigger than the width of the crochet hook, so they slide up and down nicely on the hook, but not so big that they're, you know, all over the place. If you do accidentally pull it, just grab hold of your working yarn and pull it backwards until it's back to the size that you want. So again, nicely like that. So now we've got a little bit to hold on to, and I'm going to switch the way I hold my my tail. So I'm going to hold it in my other hand, in my working yarn hand, and I'm going to put this working yarn between my two first fingers. But again, do whatever works for you. There is no right or wrong way to do this. So again, we're going to go yarn over. So this time I'm going to use the hook rather than the yarn to do the yarn over. So we're going to go pull the hook across like that, and then pull through the loop. So hopefully it will stay in focus a bit better for you. Right, so yarn over, pull through. So see, how many have we got now? So we have got, use this crochet hook to point out the stitches, right? So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so they each look like a little V. If you pull that out slightly, you can see them. So the right side of the chain looks like this, so little V's, like, a bit like a, I always think it looks a bit like a thing of corn, you know, the ears on a corn. But if you turn it around, you've got, it's still got those little V's, but it's also got a little bit down the middle of each stitch. So that is the back of the stitch. Okay, so try not to get your chain twisted so that you've got all the fronts facing the front and all the backs facing the backs. So we're going to do another 5 of these chains. So I'm going to go yarn over and then pull through, yarn over, pull through. So that's 2, yarn over, pull through. That's 3, yarn over, pull through. That's 4, yarn over, pull through. That's 5. So let's have a count up again. So we've got 1, 2. So if you go up one side and you count these like little loopy bits, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That loop that's on your hook does not count. Okay. So we are going to do now. So now we've done our chain, and often you'll see a pattern will say chain X number. So we've got 10 chains there, and we're going to do this little swatch is going to be 10 stitches wide. 10 stitches wide, because we're going to be crocheting this way. So in order for it to be 10 stitches wide, we need to do an additional chain on the end, because we're going to do single crochets, American terminology, or double crochet, UK terminology, which is the first or the smallest stitch after the chain. So the at the ends, people often say that their crochet project is kind of gets narrower as they go along, and they can't understand why they're losing stitches. It's generally because they haven't done an extra chain or chains at the end of their row, or at the beginning of the next row, which counts as a stitch. So with single crochet, US terminology, or double crochet, UK terminology, you start with 1 extra stitch or 1 extra chain, and I'll show you what we do with that in a minute. So we're just going to raise that 1 extra one. So we're just going to go yarn over and pull it through. So we now have 11. So we're now going to start working back along this chain and make our first row of stitches. Okay, so we're going to go, the reason we do that 1 extra chain, which is this one at the end here, that counts as the first stitch of the new row. So we're going to take our crochet hook and we're going to ignore this last chain that we did here, and we are going to insert our crochet hook into this next loop, into this next chain down. That's chain number 10. So we are going to do that by going in from the front. So we take our crochet hook and we go underneath this loop here. Pull it in there. This is again why you don't want your chain to be too loose or too tight. So we've now got our original loop, and we've got another one here, which is the stitch. So it's the first loop of that chain. Remember, we missed the first chain, that's going to become the first stitch. So we're now going to do our first actual stitch, which is going to be, so we've gone under, we've inserted it into that chain. We're going to go yarn over, so yarn over, and we're going to hold the work in the same hand as the yarn. So we're going to go yarn over, and exactly the same as we did with the chain, we're going to pull the crochet hook backwards so that it catches that yarn over and goes through that stitch. So now we have 2 loops on the hook. So now we need to finish this stitch, so we're going to go yarn over again, and this time we are going to pull through the 2 loops at the same time. So you ready? Gonna go, so we've got yarn over, so we pull the crochet hook backwards, we catch that yarn over strand, and then we just pull it straight through those 2 loops, and then we have our first stitch, and that is a single crochet in US terminology and a double crochet in UK terminology. So we have our very first stitch. So now we're going to go on and do the next one. So we're going to go into this hole here. So we're going to take our hook from the front and we're going to go into that stitch, into the side of that chain. Then we're going to go yarn over, pull it through that 1 stitch. So we've now got 2 loops on our chain, on our hook, and then we're going to go yarn over, and then we're going to pull it backwards through those 2 chains. 1, 2, and there we have our second stitch. So I'm going to do the same all the way down. So I'm going to go into that chain, yarn over, try and do it so you can see what I'm doing. Right, yarn over, pull through the first chain. So we've got 2 loops on the first stitch. So we've got 2 loops on our thing now, on our hook now, yarn over, and pull through 2 loops. That is the basis of all crochet stitches. It just depends on when and where you do the yarn over and how many times you pull through, how many loops you pull through at a time. So again, so we're going to go into that one, yarn over, pull up a loop, 2 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through 2. Okay. Let's see if I can do this a bit easier to see. Just stand a piece of paper for it to focus on. Maybe we'll be happier with that. Okay. So next stitch we're going to go into this, under this loop here. So we're going to go in there, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then we're going to go yarn over, pull through 2 into the next stitch, yarn over, pull through 2, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. Get all my tails out of the way. Right. So we're going to go into this stitch here. Oops, I went too far down. Into this stitch here. Yarn over. Put up a loop. Yarn over. Pull through 2. I've got 3 more to do here. So into the next stitch. Yarn, see my yarn almost automatically goes over. I hold it like this, so yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, into the chain, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn into the stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. So now we've got to the end of this row, so we can count the stitches now. We've got, so each stitch is one of these little V's. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So now with the chain we were only going under 1 loop because it was a chain. From now on we're going to create the stitches by going underneath both of these loops, top loops of the stitches. So now we're at the end of the row, we're going to turn our work and go back the other way. So I'm going to take our little piece and we're going to swing it around the other way. So we're now looking at the back of the work. Looks a little bit different to the front. So because we're starting again, and make sure you're picking up your yarn that's attached to the ball. So again, we're going to hold on to this little tail with our little finger just to keep it out of the way. So because we've turned, we need to do a chain 1 first, which makes the end stitch on this. So we're going to go yarn over and pull it through the loop that's on the hook. We've got a chain 1 here. And because we've made a chain 1 here, we're not going to go into this first stitch because this chain 1 counts as a first stitch. So we're going to, our first one is going to be this second stitch from the hook, which is this one here. So you can see this is, if you look at it from the top, there's this V. So we're going to insert our hook just like we did from the chain, but we're going to go in underneath both of these loops here. And you see that? So we've put the underneath, there's the back loop, there's the front loop of the previous stitch. So we've now got, so then we're going to do exactly the same. So we're going to go yarn over and we're going to pull it back out through under those 2 loops, and we've got now 2 loops on the hook. And then we're going to go yarn over, we're going to go pull through 2. So now we have, this was our chain 1, which is the first stitch, and here is our single crochet US terms, double crochet UK terms. So the next one we're going to go in here. So you see there's a hole there. We're going to go into that hole, yarn over, pull it through so you've got a loop, yarn over, pull it through 2. Okay, the next one we're going to go into this hole here. So we're going yarn over, and that hole is actually takes you underneath those 2 loops of the stitch. See? So we're going to go yarn over, pull it through 1, yarn over, pull it through 2, and then you can see we're going to go into this hole here, yarn over, pull it through 1, yarn over, pull it through 2. Okay, then into this one, yarn over, into the stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull it through 2. Into this one, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull it through 2. Okay, then we're going to go into this hole here, so yarn over, pull it through, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. We're going to go last one, there, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. Now I'm going to count our stitches here, so we're going to have a look at the top. So we've got 1, which was our chain 1, and then we've got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we need to also make a stitch into this chain 1. It's a bit of a mess here. So you're basically gonna, if you look at it from the top, you can see the V of the two, so we want to go underneath those two. Just give it a bit of a wiggle, right, okay. So we're now under those two, so we're going to go yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. So there we have got our 10 stitches for the second row. So we're going to turn again and go back the other way. So turn your work around, get yourself comfy, then we do our chain 1. So yarn over, pull it through the loop. Now we're not going to go into this first hole here because that's what the chain 1 is for. It's creating the first stitch, so we're going to do our first one into this one here, into this hole here. Okay, so we're going to ignore this first stitch because we've done our chain 1. So we're going to go into this hole here, and then pick up our yarn, go yarn over and pull through a loop, and yarn over again, oh, can't see what I'm doing, and pull through 2. Sometimes it gets caught, so just give it a little wiggle until you come out the other side. Okay, so that's into that one, so you can see now here is our chain 1. So we've ignored this stitch and we've gone into this second stitch. And depending on, as I said, depending on what stitch you're doing, depends on how many chains you do, because different stitches are different heights. So you need to do, the bigger the stitches, the more chains you need to do at the end to build that first stitch up. So now we're going to go into this hole here. Going to yarn over, scoop up the yarn with the hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. And the next one we're going into here, so this hole here. You can see where you need to go. You've got a little row of holes along there. So we're going to go into this one here, under these 2 loops, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, into the next stitch. We're going to go yarn over, pull through, pull up a loop, so you've got 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2. Gonna go into this hole here, go yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, go into this hole here, so yarn over, pull up a loop, and yarn over, pull through 2. I'm gonna go into this hole here, so it's shining through that, into there, yarn over, scoop it up, we pull it through, 2 loops on your hook, yarn over again, pull that yarn through 2. Okay, so we're going to go into this hole here, go yarn over, pull up one loop, so 2 on the hook, yarn over, pull through 2. Okay, and I'm going to go into this last one here. It's a bit easier to see this time, so I'm going to go into that hole there, yarn over, give it a bit of a wiggle, make sure you don't pick up any extra threads, 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So there we are, there's another row. So this is the front of the work, and this is the back. Okay. So the important things to remember are doing that chain 1 at the beginning of your row and missing the first stitch. So I'm going to show you that one more time. So we're going to turn our work. So here is the first stitch, we're going to miss that when we do it, and here is the second stitch. So I'm going to turn our work, I'm going to grab all our bits, so we're going to go yarn over and pull through the loop that's on the hook. So that's our chain 1, and then as I said, we're not going to go into this hole, this first one here, we're going to go into the second one. So we're going to go into that one, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. Okay, and that's the important thing, to keep your stitch count right, keep your edges nice and straight, and make sure that you aren't dropping any stitches anywhere, is that chain 1 at the beginning, and then miss that first stitch, because the chain 1 effectively becomes your first stitch. So I'm going to leave it there for today. Hopefully that makes some kind of sense. Please leave me comments, please leave me feedback. It's my first proper tutorial video, so I'm more than happy for constructive criticism. Tell me what you'd like to see, tell me what I've done right, tell me what I've done wrong. Yeah, and hopefully this will get you started on crochet. Next time we will do some different stitches, so we will make some bigger stitches, taller stitches, so that will make your work grow quicker. But this is the basics, and once you've got that, that is the basis for all crochet, is yarn over, pull through loops. So yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed this, hopefully you've learned something, and leave me a comment and a like. Thank you. Bye.